I guess about 3 years ago, I say the idea, but it was way more than an idea. It was just something I couldn't turn off that was kind of drawing me to writing this book. There was all these thoughts and ideas about life before humanity, pretty much, and I pushed them to the side. I was raised in a Christian home. I consider myself to be Christian. There's certain principles and beliefs that I was raised with that this book actually challenged. So once I started writing it, after a couple of months, I pushed it to the side, and I said, "No, this isn't. I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing." And it wasn't until last year that I picked it back up, because I starting to write another book, and it just wasn't. I was forcing it, and I talk in the book about when you feel like you're confused about what you're doing with your life and you're having to force it. I think that's when you've stumbled off your purpose path and you're walking on somebody else's. And I was forcing this other book, this other project, because I didn't want to do Wrapped in Skin. I didn't want, that wasn't for me. Let somebody else do it. And last year just got to the point where I was like, I can't ignore it any longer. I have to be convicted about this book, about this process, and understand that I should grow from it too. Because I think that was the problem. I wasn't ready to grow, and this book forced me to grow. So it's just as much. It was a selfish pursuit, I think.
Nice.
Because as much as I hope this empowers other people to understand that they are important, that they have a reason for existence, and it did so much for me. That you pick up a book and you can't put it down when you're reading it. That's what happened when I was writing it. I just couldn't, I'd have to force myself to take a break from it.
Nice. You mentioned something, and I'm just want to make sure I'm clear, because you mentioned that you grew up in a Christian household, and that as you were writing this book, there were certain things that came up as you were writing that may have gone against the principles that you were raised with. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say gone against.
Or challenged, then.
Yeah, challenged. And I think for the most part it enriched them.
Oh, okay.
They were just a little different.
Okay.
Or they presented themselves in ways that had never been presented. For instance, we talk about living righteous, and religion has had a hard time explaining why you should live righteously. What is the reason for righteous living? And oftentimes it's done it by saying, if you don't live righteous, you're going to go to hell. Which, true or not true, I don't think fear is the correct way to motivate people. And so I started to explore, why should we live righteously? And I noticed in my own life that when I was living unrighteously, I was unable to hear from God. Completely unable to feel anything, to be moved, to be inspired. I felt like my prayers weren't being answered, because my prayers weren't really prayers. They were just like habit. And so that started me to think, why at this point can I not hear from God? And it was because I was living unrighteously. There were things that I was doing in my life that were out of line with what God wanted me to do. And so in those moments, and over the years they've been brief moments of righteous living, clarity. I got clarity when I lived righteously. When I did things that I knew were in the favor of God. My head was clear. I was enlightened all the time, inspired. I could hear from God, sometimes audibly. So that was one thing that I wasn't motivated to live righteous by the fear of going to hell. To live a sin-free life devoid of purpose, why? You can be in your house all day long, not interact with people, but be sin free. Never commit a sin. Is that what God wants? Is that what God wants for our lives? And I don't think so. I think the bigger picture of living sin free and living righteously is so we can communicate with the one who sent us here. Otherwise, communication is stifled.
Good stuff.
So that's one thing that, like I said, it didn't really. I don't know if it contradicted, my Christian upbringing, but it enlightened me and it enriched the things that I was taught as a child.
So what does it mean to have a relationship with God? What does it mean for you to hear God? People feel like they don't, that's something, out of the ordinary to hear from God.
I think where we make a mistake is that we view God as somewhere else. So it's like you and I have a relationship. I have to come to you, come visit you. You have to come see me. You might live in another state or another city or 30 minutes away, but there's a piece of God inside of us. And I think the journey to God is a journey within ourselves. When we come to know ourselves, then we will get closer to God. There is no true relationship with ourselves without a relationship with God. We are Him, He is us. And there is no separation. The person who's never stepped inside a church, that doesn't mean that they can't have a relationship with God. They choose not to. That just means they've chosen not to explore their own souls. He's not separate. It's not separate. Or she's not, whatever you want to, God is not separate from us. It's within every one of us. There is a piece of God within all of us. And the more we cultivate it, the bigger it gets. You see some people and there's like an aura around them. I think they've chosen to cultivate that piece of God that's inside of them. They've chosen to give it life, to water it, to feed it, and to acknowledge that it exists. And so when you see them, they can't hide it. It's like all over their face. It emanates from them. They've meditated, they've prayed, they've chosen to live a righteous life, and you can see it. So I think that's how you develop. You just have to find out who you are. Discover yourself, spend time with yourself, and don't be ashamed of who you are. And I think that's how you begin to develop a relationship with God.
Okay. Yeah. So who inspires you? You mentioned one author earlier, but
yeah, a lot of writers inspire me. I say in the book that my mom, she passed away when I was a kid, but she taught me so much within such a short amount of time. And it wasn't like she sat me down and told me lessons. It was just watching her and her. She said things that stuck. Some people just say things that are, just idle things. They don't really stick with you. But everything that she said, I say stuff now that I just remember. Like there's things that come up in conversation. Where did I hear that from? And so she was saying stuff along the way, and she lived it out. So my biggest inspiration has been her. My brother inspires me to the utmost, just because he's had to overcome things that I could not ever have dealt with. And that's why I say, God understands, who can do what, who can handle what, because some of the things he's gone through, if it was me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. I would have given up a long time ago. So he inspires me. Obviously, there's a lot of writers that inspire me. Malcolm Gladwell, Wayne Dyer. I read them a lot. And Malcolm Gladwell kind of gives me, forces me to look at the world a little differently. and of course, Wayne just, he does so much for as far as inspiration goes. Allows you to step outside of yourself and kind of do a self-examination. This inspires me. I get inspired by like a lot of historic figures. Like, really when I was writing this book, we talked about the pre-human condition. That, for me, that was something that I had never heard growing up. And that's why it didn't come out of my own cognition, because I've never heard that. Nobody has presented that to me. But I started to search for people who had kind of that same mindset. So I began to read Plato. And to find that some of the thoughts that he had hundreds of years ago were the same things that I had, the same thoughts that I had, was just confirmation. So I get not a lot of people walk around with platonic dialogue in their backpack, but I'm inspired by a lot of stuff. And just when I'm outside, like, it sounds kind of corny, but trees, and I took a picture the other day. It was like this huge bee, right? But it was a wood bee, so it was no stinger on it. But it was just like hovering, like right here. I didn't swat at it. It didn't move. It just hovered, like long enough for me to take a picture of it. And that, I don't know why, but it was just something that inspired me. It felt comfortable enough to be near me. I felt comfortable with it. There was nothing, So I get inspired by little things. Yeah.
Can I do something?
Yeah.
Just have to take the camera off.
How you doing?
I just want to have one more question for you. So you recently got a tattoo, right?
I did.
What's your newest tattoo? Can we get a close-up of it?
All right, so that is the title of my book. Excuse my hairy armpit. Wrapped in skin. This, I don't know if you can see all the way around, but as I told you, I lost my mom when I was young, and a couple of years ago, it's a dove. A couple of years ago, I lost my grandma and my aunt about a month apart, and they were they raised me after my mom passed away, both of them. And so I got 3 doves, one here, this one on my mom's been there for a while. I recently got the one of my, that represents my aunt on the back of my arm, and there's another dove on my chest that represents my grandma. So, those were people in my life that not only inspired me, but they were my caregivers. They made me the man that I am today. And so, those are some obstacles that I had to overcome, and I feel like without an understanding of, their relationship with God and how they felt about their connection to the world and what they were purposed to do, I wouldn't have been able to make it through that. So, that's just a little. I'm into tattoos. I try to stay away from getting too many, but that's just a little memorial to a few of the special ladies in my life.
All right, for real, final question. So why should someone buy your book?
I think, again, everybody wants to know why they exist. And this book gives you tools to begin to understand what it means to connect with God. What you should tell yourself every day and every night to spark that sense of purpose, in yourself. It leads you on a journey to self-discovery, and I think it makes your existence much more profound than just what are my earthly ambitions. What does my ego tell me to do? It's so much larger than that, and I think this book hits on it, and it will really allow people to. It will force them to not ignore their existence. Not just stumble through life hoping that it works out. It will force them to really examine themselves, and will instill a sense of self-worth in them like nothing else. Because once you understand that you existed before this life, and this life is just a short period of time, and that you will exist after it, what you do here matters so much. Because it not only matters to you, but it matters to me. It matters to everybody that you come in contact with. You know, it's bigger than yourself. And I think that's what this book will do. I hope that's what it will do. It's what it's done for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff.